In this video, I will be talking about the basics of changing a tube on a mountain bike tire, specifically in the case of getting a flat while out on the trail or just needing to quickly replace your tube before a ride. There are 3 tools you will need. First, a bike pump. Here we're using a floor pump, but this is not something you would have with you on a ride, so alternatively, you would be using a hand pump. Hand pumps are small and easy to carry along with you on a ride. Second, you will need at least 1 tire lever, but 2 can be useful. In this video, we will be demonstrating how to change your tube using 2 because it can make this task slightly easier. Last, you will need a spare tube. You always want to ride with a spare tube just in case you get a flat on the trail. Make sure that your spare tube is the correct size. The bike we're working on has a 29-inch wheel, so we will replace it with a 29-inch tube. The first thing you need to do is remove the wheel from your bike. I won't go into a lot of detail about this step because all mountain bikes look a little bit different, but this bike particularly, like most mountain bikes, has a quick release, meaning that the tire is not bolted onto the bike, so you don't need a wrench to loosen the outer axle nuts. You just pull up on the lever and then unscrew the nut with your other hand. It may also be useful to note that this bike has disc brakes, which make removing the tire very easy. You may need to do this step slightly different if you have rim brakes. There are 2 simple ways to position your bike. First, you can flip the bike upside down, resting it on the seat and handlebars, which is most useful if you are out on the trails, or if you have access to a bike stand or something sturdy to hang the seat from, that will also work. Here we have the bike seat simply hanging from the end of a clothesline. Once you've taken the tire off the bike, set it on the ground and hold it up with one hand. Using the same hand, push the bead of the tire towards the center of the rim. Then, using your other hand, take the first tire lever and scoop it underneath the bead of the tire and clip the other end of the tire lever to a spoke. Then, using the second tire lever, wedge it underneath the bead, roughly an inch or 2 away from the first lever. Run the second lever underneath the bead all the way around the rim until you reach the first lever. This should completely release the bead from the rim, giving you access to the tube. Next, locate the valve and begin removing the tube from the side opposite to the valve. Then, to fully remove the tube, push straight up on the valve or pull the tube upwards directly above the valve. After you remove the old tube, locate the new tube and use the pump to fill it up with enough air so that it holds its shape. When replacing the tube, you need to locate the rim valve hole, the same place where you removed the original valve from, and insert the valve of the new tube through the rim valve hole. Then, work your way around the tire and lay the tube on the rim. After the tube is laid inside the tire, use your hands to push the bead of the tire back into the rim. It is best to only use your hands to avoid injury to the tube, but it can be helpful to use a tire lever once you've nearly replaced the entire bead in the rim, just so you can pop the last section of the bead back into the rim. Then, take your bike pump and give the tire a little bit of air. Then inspect all of the edges and make sure the bead is completely inside the rim. While inspecting the rim, you can also locate the intended PSI, also known as pressure per square inch, for your tire. This is the range of pressure that the tire is meant to be ridden at, and it will have an effect on how your bike performs. Having your tire filled to the correct PSI can also help you avoid unnecessary flats. If you're using a floor pump, there's a gauge that tells you the PSI, but on a hand pump there isn't a gauge, so it's a good idea to familiarize yourself with how your tire should feel when it is at the correct PSI. Last, you need to put the wheel back on your bike. Again, I'm not going to go into much detail here, but as you can see, it's essentially the opposite of removing the tire. You replace the axle and screw the axle nut back on to secure the tire. Finally, give the tire a spin to be sure that it isn't loose or crooked. I hope you have found this video useful, and keep in mind that replacing a tube gets easier with practice, so try performing this skill before you hit the trails.